Hi, everybody. Let me know whether this is working, will you? Because it's the new camera. It's the Osmo Pocket. There we go. I've zoomed in a bit. Let me know whether you can see me. Let me know whether you can hear me, whether everything's okay while I caffeinate, because I do need to caffeinate this morning. Okay, while I'm waiting for that, I probably should explain why I'm doing a live stream instead of a video today. And the answer is simple and yet complex. Last 3 or 4 days, I've been crazy busy. I've been doing a lot of stuff. Hi, Dick. How you doing? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So I've been very, very busy. Um, and Luna wants to go out, but I'm not letting her out because reasons. Um, I did an extra video this week because I had all of that stuff from Imprint and I needed to get a video out about those. I also went out 2 nights in a row, which was kind of complex and kind of over the top. Can see and hear us okay, says John Hart. Hi, John. Hi, Tom. Yeah, surprise. Glad to see me here. So basically, 2 days in a row, flat out. I went to the Cinemaniacs on Saturday and saw a couple of movies, and I'll tell you more about them in a moment. So I had a double feature at the Astor with Cinemaniacs. Got there all early, talked a lot of movie stuff with friends, saw the movies, drove home, and on the way home, and this is the crazy bit. On the way home, I get about maybe 3/4 of the way home. And suddenly at 11:30 at night, there's a crazy amount of traffic, and we're bumper to bumper and, like, just not moving. And I thought, "Oh, there's been a car accident. It's horrible. There's been a car accident just around the curve." And so for 45 minutes, I'm creeping through this traffic and, wondering what's happening. And I'm talking to Sal on the phone, trying to get her to find out whether there's been an accident by looking it up online. And it's taking forever, and I'm getting physically tired, but I'm not, like, falling asleep tired. Hi, Luna. And so we get there and we creep and we creep, and there are a whole bunch of flashing lights up ahead. Turns out what it was, they had 6 booze buses, like 6 drug and booze buses, lined on both sides of the 4-lane highway, trying to get people who are drug affected, who are coming home from the big AC/DC concert in Melbourne. So it was all because of the police wanting to get people who were on drugs. I wasn't on drugs. At worst, I had a coffee and 2 pieces of pizza. But I got home really late from that. So that was one of the things. Let's see what the chat's saying. Hello, I can see it here. Okay, says John. Roger says, how they hanging? Yeah, usual, 68-year-old man dips. Jim says, nice to see you. Enjoyed your comments on the latest Imprint releases. Thanks, Jim. They sent me such a large box, which I'm very grateful for. I'm aware of the privilege of that. But Imprint sent me a big box, and I knew I couldn't do it in one video, so I broke it down to the Imprint TV stuff and the Imprint movie stuff. Yeah, Dick says he can hear Luna meowing. Yeah, Luna wants to go out, and normally Sal's here. She can let the cats in and out, but I can't. Hi, Zammy Adams. I'm guessing the cops had a quota to meet. I don't know if there is quotas. I think that's just a load of bullshit. I think they were concerned of people driving while drug affected more than booze, because that's not a good thing. So I went to Cinematics. It's the second last one of the year. Fantastic time. And the movies we saw were Massacre at Central High, which I'd never seen, a horror movie from the 1980s, and The House on Sorority Row. And John Harrison, who's one of Cinemaniacs and a very good movie historian, did the talk. And he also gave us out a little bag full of stuff, which was done up like a tuck shop bag from Australian schools. And inside, we got a fanzine about the movies, done up like a high school yearbook. Inside we got The Massacre at Central High, which I loved both movies, each for their own way. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here. So we got that. We got some lollies, which is always good. Hi, Deborah. How you doing? How are things down in Nipaluna at the moment? We got some old 1980s bubblegum cards. And John warned us not to eat the bubblegum because it was fossilized. And they've got things like that on them. And we also got postcards about the two movies. Still bloody cold down in Nipaluna, but Deborah's fine. We got a postcard, the Italian cover for House on Sorority Row, which is done up as a hall pass on the back. And in Italy, Massacre at Central High had a whole bunch of hardcore inserts to it. And they called it Sexy Jeans. And there's nothing at all about that. And a detention slip on the back. So we had a great time. Lovely crowd. Next one, which is the last Cinemaniacs of the year, we're doing Frankenhooker, which I'm looking forward to seeing on the big screen. I've got a copy of it and I've seen it in various formats, but I've never actually seen Frankenhooker on the big screen. And after the movie, we're having the Christmas party in the cafe there. So that's going to be fun. So I was home like almost 2 o'clock in the morning by the time I got home. And then yesterday, I did something else. There's a new tunnel going between my part of town and the city, which has been being dug for a long time. Cost like, I think it's like $18 billion to do it. Yeah, Dick says lots of cool stuff. Yeah. So yesterday, there was the opening day of the tunnel, and they had a thing where you could go online and book, and you could walk down part of the tunnel, a road tunnel underneath these suburbs. And a lot of people did it. I booked in. I had a booking for 1 o'clock. I'm going to do a whole video about this on the other channel. And it was raining, so I got rained on. I got myself some food at the food trucks. Went down for the walk. There's a lot of up and down hill stuff. And I'm not as fit as I should be. But I did the whole walk and I got a whole video done. Walking into the tunnel's big enough you could launch a small commercial airliner out of it. It's like a massive space. And we walked maybe 800 meters into the tunnel and then chucked a U-turn and came back again. Thousands and thousands of people. Really an amazing piece of engineering. So I did the walk there, and as I said, this week there's going to be a video on the other channel about it. And they gave us medals for walking the tunnel. So I've got a Westgate Tunnel medal there with that on the back. So that was pretty impressive. Yeah, Dick says he saw the pictures I posted yesterday. Yeah, the tunnel's fantastic. I had a great time, but it exhausted the shit out of me. And I was sore afterwards because I'm walking up and down hills. I had enough water with me. I was very, very good on the hydration. But it was one of those days, it's not particularly hot, but it's very, very humid. So it got very sticky very early. Tom says he saw Frankenhooker on the big screen. Deborah says Cinemaniacs sounds like so much fun. Might have to come over to Melbourne sometime. Yeah, you should. Follow them up on Facebook and you'll be up to date on it. And then fly up. We'll hang at Cinemaniacs. You'll have a great time. You might need to get a hotel room fairly close to St Kilda, but it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, basically what I did was I exhausted myself. And always before a live stream, I don't get a full night's sleep because my brain's working on what I'm going to say during the live stream. And that's a whole thing. But yeah, I basically overcommitted myself over the last few days. Plus, we have some family health issues which are wearing on everybody's mind. And there are more things going on with that as we plan end of life for Sal's niece, my niece, and who's 29 years old, and we're planning end of life stuff for her. It's just a lot. And so I wore myself out. I didn't get time to do a video as I'd normally do on today. So I thought, I'm going to do a live stream. I can do a live stream ad hoc, but I can't really I didn't have enough time to get a video together. Let me go through the chat again. Hi, Dennis. Loud and clear in the pic's great. No cam drift either. Yeah, I'm using the Osmo Pocket, which is my traveling around video camera. And the webcam up the top is the one I usually use when I'm filming videos in this room. But because it goes random when I use it with live streams, I'm using the Osmo Pocket. Deborah says that sounds like a great idea to come up for Cinemaniacs. It is. Cinemaniacs is fun. The people are really nice. Getting there early is good for me because I get to chat with the Cinemaniacs people, the people who are on the committee. And we usually just shoot the shit in a cafe. And if I do it with Julian from Collection Creations channel, we go down and get a pizza. He's told me that's what we're going to do. But get there early, go down, get a couple of slices with Julian, come back, and we'll just hang. Just a wonderful group of people to hang out with about movies. Dick says, unfortunately for me, it's a bit of a way to come to see Cinemaniacs. It is, but it's worth it. Peter's here. Hi, Peter. How you doing? Sammy says, what was the first horror VHS I rented? I don't really remember. I mean, I bought a lot of things because when I was living in Sydney, I was living in Glebe, down the hill in Glebe, towards the city, heading towards where the fish markets are. And there was a place called Video Warehouse. And what they did was they sold videos to various video shops, but they also flogged off ex-rental VHS tapes. And they had a whole mass of them laid out on the floor of this factory and in rows. So you could go and pick them for $5 each. I did a lot of that. So I don't remember what the first one was, but I got a lot of really good VHS era videos from that place. Spending a little too much money. My wife at the time wasn't entirely happy with how much I was spending there. But that's an ongoing problem for me. And it has been since the 1980s, 90s. But that's what it is. It's a very hard thing for me to say. Renting, I rented so many in so many places. I mean, I was very big on the Charles Band horror and science fiction movies. I love those. Really works for me. But that 1980s era of VHS rentals is one I really love. Dick says, can't remember the first, but most rented was probably Trances. I love Trances. I've actually got it on 4K now. I forked out for it on 4K. And I really love all of those Trancer movies. Tom says the first VHS I rented was the movie Alice, Sweet Alice. Excellent low-budget horror movie. Yeah, and Massacre at Central High and House on Sorority Row blew me away. Massacre on Central High, they had Daryl Morey, who was the star of the movie. He did a live video not a live video, but he recorded a video specifically for the Cinemaniacs thing, where John did a talk about the movie before the movie. And he's still around, he's still doing things, he's still teaching acting. But I knew nothing about either of these films because for some reason those slipped through the cracks of my knowledge of horror slasher movies. Massacre in Central High is about a guy called David who goes to a new school where a friend of his, played by Andrew Stevens, has moved to there. And there's a group of 4 rich kids who rule the school. Now, for most of the movie, you don't see any grown-ups. You don't see any police. It's purely focused on the students. The students are all being bullied by these 4 guys. There's some attempted assault that goes on. It's really a toxic environment. And David is initially invited into this group, But because he's an independent person, he didn't agree with them a lot of things. And then one of them drops a car on his leg and he loses his leg. And he comes back to school limping because he used to be a runner and he can't do that anymore. And running was his way of getting rid of his aggression. And then these bully kids start dying off and it escalates. Fantastic movie. Got just enough violence. It's got just enough gratuitous nudity in it. A lot of fun. Not a great film, but a really interesting one that takes a different course. I really enjoyed that one. Let's see what the chat's saying. Roger says first VHS was Lucio Fulci, House by the Cemetery. Good idea, that one. Actually, I'm going to write that one down because I haven't seen House by the Cemetery, and I know where I can get a copy of it. Let me just grab my pen and paper because I don't have Sal here. Sal's sleeping at the moment. House by the Cemetery. Zami Adams says mine was Just Before Dawn. I'll write down Just Before Dawn too. But yeah, it was a great little movie. And then I saw House on Sorority Row, which is about a bunch of sorority sisters who are supposed to have left the sorority house because the house lady running the house is a cranky old git. And they were supposed to have left by a certain date, and they decided to stick around for a party. And so they're about to do this party, but there's a secret in the attic. Nice little film, and it kind of goes along kind of meh for about 3/4 of the runtime. And then in the third act, it picks up and it starts going interesting places. That one I recommend, but you got to get through the first few acts of teenage girls, college girls running around, being a bit fluffy, arguing with the house matron, and then things start going weird. Dick says, wish Sally all the best from us when she's up. Oh, I will. Yeah, she just went to bed a bit late. She needs to get some rest. I'll probably go back to sleep after I do this because I'm still recovering from the busy week. But that's okay. I will. We're actually going down in the country to Moe in Gippsland for Sal's birthday is on Friday. And so we're going down Saturday to have a birthday party with the family. So that's kind of interesting. And on the Friday, which is her actual birthday, we're going to the movies. And I'll leave you guys to guess what we're seeing because that ain't my usual jam when it comes to movies. Peter says, Hellraiser was my first VHS nasty, still love it. Yeah, Hellraiser, because of Clive Barker's nature, was a bit of a mind blower at the time. Yeah, I will give her a happy birthday from you and Carol Dick, absolutely. So yeah, we're going down to visit with the fam, including Steph, her niece, who is, as I said, quite ill. So we're going to do that. We haven't been down there before. So we're going out down in the country. I'm going to do a video for the other channel because there's a couple of really weird things down where they live. So I'm going to record a video for that as well. So that's going to be busy, but it's going to be that kind of busy where I can get someone else to do part of the driving, which is good. I'm looking forward to getting out of town and doing that. So how's everybody else's day going? I've talked about what I'm doing, but how has everybody else's day gone? I'm interested in that because you guys all live on different parts of this clay and granite planet. And it's always different from what we have here. We've had a lot of rain and storms over the last few days. As the weather warms up, it tends to happen. So I haven't been able to get out and do some of the things I wanted to do for the channel or for the other channel. But I will increasingly be able to do that because I really want to get the other channel to the point where it's monetized. And to do that, I need to get subscriptions and view time. So that's why I went out and did the tunnel yesterday. Weirdly, I'm inordinately and stupidly proud of this little medal because I am. I just love it. So yeah, getting out and doing stuff is good for me. Deb says it's lovely country down around Maui. Nice break for both of you, and birthday greetings for Sally. Thank you. Yeah. So we're going to drive down there, fang it down there. There's a cake waiting, so there will be cake. And Sal's cutting me a bit of slack to just spend a couple of hours doing things. I'll give you one clue. There's a place that has a giant potato, like a big artificial potato. And there's another one that's related to Winston Churchill. So I'm going to go to those two places and get a video out of it. Dick says, went to an indoor booth fair but didn't find films. That's a pity. Zammy says, London, grey but brilliant. Yeah, and expensive too. I keep seeing vlogs and travel vlogs about London and the prices of things there. That's getting egregious. You've got to stop those Russian oligarchs from stealing everything that the British monarchy hasn't already stolen. We have the same problem in Sydney and Melbourne. Sydney's been taken over by wealthy people. All the groovy little kind of alternative places aren't as groovy and alternative as they were. I always feel a little sad when I go back to my hometown. Melbourne a bit too, though. The cultural focus of Melbourne is, to a certain extent, moving away from the CBD. And it's going to all of the ethnically diverse areas on the fringes. So all the good restaurants and all the good festivals are no longer in the city. They had this weird thing too, because AC/DC were on. They did the world's biggest bagpipe thing in Melbourne. Biggest number of bagpipers in one place, in Fed Square in Melbourne. I fucking hate bagpipes. And I'm glad I was 30 kilometres away at the time. Weird stuff in the city. Tom says, recently bought the Renowned Westerns on the DVD box set. Randolph Scott starred in all of them. Can't wait to watch them. I've heard so much good about them. The Renowned Westerns are great. The Renowned, you know how when you make a beef dish and you've got the au jus next to it, like the intensified juices of the beef in an au jus. The Renowned Westerns are like an au jus of Westerns. They're compressed and compacted and flavorful, and they're like the essence of Westerns. And they're not long. They're made on a small budget, but the Renowned Westerns are mind-blowingly good. And the plots are all great. Dick says, stopped off in a couple of charity shops and did find a Marvel book. Cool. Zammy Adams says, Jenny Agutter's flat in American Werewolf was shot a few streets away. Cool. Boinkbot says, how exciting and how nice to see you. Thank you. We didn't get American Wolf in London here. But Brain Dead, the movie Brain Dead, the cul-de-sac of houses in Brain Dead are less than a kilometre from my house. And I kind of like the fact that they are. And I'll watch that film every now and then just to see how my neighbourhood was 30 years ago, because I wasn't here at the time. But that's pretty much all we get in our hood. This is a nice chatty live stream. I'm happy with this one. I don't have to wrestle a camera, which always enervated me. And this one's going nicely. I'm happy with this. It's picking me up. I also dragged out some movie books. Do you want to see the movie books I dragged out? There's about a dozen of them. And I was looking at them. And I thought, I should do those for a channel. Dick says, been rainy here most of the day in Dover. It does tend to happen, doesn't it? But on the other hand, on a clear day, you can see France. That just triggered me. Saucisson sausage is one of my favorite foods. And French saucisson is just fantastic. Zammy Adams says, Repulsion and Clockwork Orange was shot where I live. That's a good one. Those two are always going to make you feel good about your home. Deborah says, always up for looking at movie books. I believe the Hobart Tip Shop, I hear that from my other connections. The Hobart Tip Shop occasionally has some really good movie books, Deborah. if you can swing it out there. Peter says, I'm off op shopping later. It's a lovely mild day here in Adelaide. Good, because that'll mean we get a mild day here tomorrow. Because we always get Adelaide's weather a day later. Roger says, lazy grey day in Corby, Northamptonshire. The rose of the Shires. Watch Bond's Dr. No for the first time in ages. Yeah, I kind of like Dr. No, though. The rear projection car scenes just take me out of it for some reason. And the yellow face with Joseph Wiseman, a Jewish guy from New York playing a half Chinese Fu Manchu wannabe. There's aspects to the older Bond films. I totally love a lot of them. But there are occasional ones where you go, yeah, no. But anybody want to see these movie books look like? Dick says, have the coming week off work, so me and Carol will be visiting a few towns and going around the charity shops. Why not? You're on that little island. You might as well fang it around and just see what you can find, Dick. My advice in charity shops is head to the posh towns or head to the posh areas. Most of the time you'll find everything's bland as fuck. But occasionally you'll find some really good stuff in a posh charity shop. Tom wants to see the movie books. Okay, we'll start out. I just dragged these off the shelves to have something to talk about in this video. This one is a classic film, but they came out as an ace paperback. Deborah says, yep, Hobart Tip Shop is pretty fab, but sometimes expensive. I've got a fantastic mate who's a bookseller and he does good deals for secondhand. Carol says, yep, Hythe, and I don't know if I'm mispronouncing that, and Tenderton are money towns near us. Cool. And Zammy Adams watched Begonia yesterday and absolutely loved it. I want to see Begonia. Haven't had a chance to get out and see it yet. Okay, here's the first of the movie books. The translated version of Theo von Harbour's Metropolis. Theo von Harbour was, of course, married to Fritz Lang and wrote the script and the novel for Metropolis. And this is a 1962 ace paperback of it. I'm being very careful with this because a lot of these paperbacks were printed on acid paper and they are getting a little bit fragile. But I love that Jack Gauguin artwork there, very abstract. And I'm glad I got a copy of it. Okay, chat says Bonkbot wants to see Begonia too. Before it leaves cinemas, I better get onto that. Deborah says Begonia is great. I really enjoyed it. Dick says, unfortunately, Friday we have to take Roxy to the vets for the removal of a tumour. That's a shame. Give Roxy a hug for us. So the trips to charity shops will help take our minds off it. Absolutely. Franny's here. Hi, Franny. Also, the frame had warped on the door a few years ago and the top lock no longer seats. There's no use. They have accidentally fixed the frame so the top lock now works again. Hooray! Peter says, that's the edition of Metropolis that I've got. Cool. Ace books are notorious for falling apart while you read them. Yeah, I mean, every paperback those days was printed on very acidic paper because of the process used to make the paper. And so you've got to be very careful with them. It's a shame because there's a ton of good stuff. Ace doubles in particular really hit well where you get one book on one side and another book on the other side. Bonkbot says, that's gorgeous. Those old paperbacks are fabulous with the imaginative artwork. Absolutely. Next one I've got is a little bit more unusual. And I want to get a copy of this movie. I haven't got it yet. So when the Christmas money comes through, this is the movie I'm going to get with the Christmas money. A novel by Orson Welles, Mr. Arcadin. Now, there is a Criterion edition of the movie that has all the different versions of Confidential Report, aka Mr. Arcadin. But I've got the novel. And this one I really like. I want to re-watch Mr. Arcadin. Keep looking up at that camera, but it's this one. But Orson Welles wrote the novel of it, and it was printed by Icon. Just a lot of fun. And I like collecting novels by directors. I've got Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in America book, and I've also got his Cinema Speculations. But that one I really love having. BBC did a radio play of Thea von Harbu's Metropolis. Cool. Roger says, usually any train sequences filmed nearby me in the Nene Valley Railway. Also, cruise over Corby hanging from large plane. Oh, yeah, Tom Cruise over Corby hanging over a large plane from nearby US base. Coningsby, Peterborough. Cool. Deborah says ace doubles are good. They are. I've got a few of them in boxes. I've got a lot of my videos stored in those boxes, a lot of my novels stored in those boxes. And as a part of the man cave cleanup, which I'm going to do, I'm going to be going through those. Tom says, I collect ace mystery doubles from the 50s and 60s. Cool. Dick says, reading an old copy of Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is every page I read, coming away from the spine as I read it. Yeah, Jules Verne novels are interesting because once upon a time in 2004, Sal and I went to Hay-on-Wye, the big book town over on the Welsh border. And I went into a big book warehouse, secondhand books, dusty old wonderful place. And I was looking for, which one was it? It might have been Journey to the Center of the Earth. So I say to the lady at the counter, I'm looking for a copy of Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth. And she said, I'll take you to the Jules Verne section. And there's 3 enormous bookcases full of different editions of Jules Verne's novels. Blew me away entirely. And it made the selection process a lot more difficult. Now, these next 2 are going to make people envious. And it's dusty for some reason. The novels of Danger Man with Patrick McGoohan. I've got that one with Patrick McGoohan looking very, very surly. I've got that one. I like having these. They're great. And on the back, the covers get even more surrealistic with those moire effects there. This one's a little more ordinary. But yeah, I don't even know where I picked these up. I picked them up a long time ago, but really good fun. Captain Laser says, is 3D dead and can finally be put to rest? The novelty wears thin every time. Yeah, I don't think 3D is necessary in movies. I want to see an IMAX movie. I haven't seen an IMAX movie before. So one of the things I'll probably do this summer is go to an IMAX movie cinema. Deborah says, oh my God, Danger Man novels. Yeah, Danger Man novels, Deborah. Roger says, got a large collection of M.R. James ghost stories, most of which have been made by BBC into their Christmas ghost story TV shows. Cool. Dick says, cool, have those Danger Man books too, as well as the prisoner ones. Been thinking of doing a video for the channel on Danger Man prisoner books. Go for it. Do it. You'll have great. Captain Laser loves IMAX and 70mm. I've seen 70mm, but I haven't seen IMAX. Have to go into the city to see IMAX and into Carlton. I really should try to find a movie that I want to see and see it on IMAX. Nobody's asked me which movie I'm going to see for Sal's birthday. Peter's got the 60s novels of Dr. Strangelove and First Men in the Moon. Cool. It's always nice having a few of these, and they do sit small on the shelves. But I've got the movie edition of The Ipcress File. the Panther Crime Band edition. Dick says, what movie are you going to see for Sally's birthday? We're going to see the Wicked sequel. I haven't seen Wicked yet. I've got to see Wicked this week, so I'm not going cold into the sequel. I can see it on Disney Plus, but we're going to see the Wicked sequel for her birthday. So I've got the Ipcress file, and there we are with the wonderful Nigel Green and Harry Palmer on the back. But there's more. Also got the funeral in Berlin. With a picture of Len Dayton on the back. Tom says, I made Night of the Demon in 1958 based on M.R. James' short story Casting of the Runes that was written in 1905. Yeah, I love Night of the Demon, Curse of the Demon. And Paul loved the Harry Palmer film. It's already done a video, which has done crazy well on the channel, of the Harry Palmer trilogy. And I said in the video that I didn't like the ones that were made in the 1990s. And every couple of weeks, I still get new views on it, where people go, there are 5 Harry Palmer films, because they've looked at the title where it says trilogy and haven't actually watched the video. John Witt says, how am I planning to see Predator Badlands? Yes, I am. I don't know whether it's going to be on streaming or in a video, like in a cinema, but I am going to see it with the family thing and Sal's birthday this week. I don't think I'll get a chance to see it this week. There's a couple of other things we've got to get done. But I do want to see Predator Badlands. I've liked pretty much all of the other Predator movies, except Predator versus Alien or Alien versus Predator. Didn't like that one. Roger says to Thomas Stein, I know Night of the Demon, my Halloween movie every year. Yep. The 1990s ones are on Amazon Prime, says Paul, about the Harry Palmer films. And skip those. Yeah, it's not worth it. John Hart loves the Ipcress File film. Currently reading the novel. Now, not what I expected. Yeah, there are variations. I've actually... Why is my throat going? I've actually got original Blu-ray poster of the Ipcress File. So, like the Daybill poster. So I've got that in the collection as well. Dick says, missed out on the imprint box set of Harry Palmer films. Wish I picked it up at the time. Yeah, I managed to get it from them, and I really like it. It's they're beautifully done, beautifully curated, beautiful additions to them as well. Which Predator is my favorite? I love too. Probably Prey, because it tells you what to do with a franchise. Take it totally somewhere else with the new characters. Make it new again by making it about something totally different. And I've got Prey on 4K as well. I like it that much. I think that one shows you what to do when you're rebooting a franchise and how to do it in a gracious and really intense way. Next one, this one's actually the script for the movie. I've got the script for Easy Rider in book form. Screenplay by Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, and Terry Sutherland. The complete script and a vivid selection of stills together with interviews and articles. So basically, this is like Blu-ray extras for Easy Rider. Another movie I've got on 4K. Deborah says I'm going to wait till Predator Badlands is streaming. Prey was my favorite too. Cool. Ralph just watched the OG Predator yesterday for my holiday genre palooza. Cool. And scripts are interesting to read, Paul. Yeah, they give you a different viewpoint. Boinkbot says, have any of you seen Weapons yet? I really enjoyed it. Aren't glad this is the best thing since sliced bread. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm waiting to see it on streaming. Didn't get to it in the cinema for various reasons. Roger got the Impress box set, including novel and soundtrack by John Barry. Excellent, yeah. It is. This is a movie I want to talk about on the channel at some stage. Espresso Bongo, which stars Lawrence Harvey and Cliff Richard in an early role. If you've seen Espresso Bongo, it is funny as hell. It's like a hidden gem 1960s, or maybe late 1950s. Movies set in the showbiz lower end of things in London. And Lawrence Harvey is very good in this one. But I found this in an op shop and picked it up. Espresso Bongo I've got on Blu-ray as well. I should rewatch that at some stage. But a lot of fun, that movie. I'm fairly sure it is 1960s. Captain Laser says, another Avatar movie in December. Plan to review? No. I'm not going to review the Avatar movie. I may go and see it. But for me, Avatar movies are basically sexual fantasies for James Cameron. I think nobody cares about the Avatar movies anywhere near as much as James Cameron does. They made a shit ton of money. All the money in the world. But they've got less cultural impact than a meme. They really don't hit for people. They put out the merch, they put out the movies, they try to hype them up. People go to see them once and they go, okay, I've seen it. It's a weird, like, charisma void of a movie series. Deborah says, couldn't get into Weapons, couldn't see what all the fuss was about. Okay, that's interesting. I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't seen it yet. I will see it, but we'll just see where we go from that. Paul says, I didn't watch the first Avatar until 4K came out. It was okay. During the second, I think I fell asleep. I'm not surprised. From a technological point of view, it's fantastic. It's like Star Wars. From a technological point of view, it's fantastic. But when you start to pick it apart, it falls apart. Bot says, we're all in different tastes, but I found Art Gladys to be a hoot. I always enjoy Josh Brolin. He makes great role choices, in my opinion. I'm hearing bad things about Josh Brolin in the Running Man sequel, where he's a little bit low energy for the role and not quite right for it. But we'll see. Seems to be a nice guy, but I'm not sure how he is. Boinkbot says, uh-oh. I don't know what uh-oh means. Maybe that means we're getting ads. There could be that we're getting ads. Ads pay for me. So if we get ads... By the way, I forgot to mention, the fart gun is here and ready for anybody who does the super chat. So keep that in mind. Yep, the chat stopped, which probably means we're getting an ad. But that's okay. I'll just wait the ad out. In the meantime, the Prisoner novels. There's the first one by Thomas M. Stish, a good science fiction writer. That's the first of the Prisoner novels. Bogbot says, Josh Brolin, a lackluster appearance. Parish's thought. Yeah, I think this is what I'm hearing. Bogbot says, that's why I love cinema so much. We all see it differently. Absolutely. And Thomas says, the Avatar movies are eye candy, short on plot, great on visuals. And Deborah says, Avatar movies are soulless. They are. Also got the second of the Prisoner novels, who is number 2. This one done by David McDaniel. And 3, which is written by Hank Stein, who was a good science fiction writer in his own right. So I've got those in the collection. But yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated with how little impact culturally James Cameron's Avatar movies have. They're just, it's an odd piece of cinema history. Ralph says, if I didn't know how little the studios care for the financial health of theatres, I'd say some movies seem to be only to sell collectibles. Avatar, blue fleshlight popcorn tubs. Since Star Wars made more on the merch than it ever made in the movies. And that sent a signal to the studios that if you make stuff that makes good toys and good merch, the movies become secondary to that and secondary to all that stuff. And that's proven to be true with a certain kind of movie. Nobody's going to be making Hereditary merch on a large scale. Nobody's going to be making Martyrs merch. But certain kinds of movies like that, the merch is why the movie is made. Deborah says, ooh, those prisoner novels look lovely. They are. They're great, and I'm trying to keep them together. Bogbot says, Deborah, I've only seen the first one. It was cool because it was spectacular in IMAX. We're talking about the Avatar movies there. Paul says, the prisoner novels look wonderful. Adored the series. Yeah. And Imprint sent me the series on Blu-ray. I did have it on DVD, but they sent me the Blu-ray. So I'm very happy about that. Roger says, Avatar, visually stunning 4D IMAX story. A lot of pony and trap. Yeah, it's not great. Ralph says, yeah, we're never going to get Alphaville action figures. I would buy a Lemmy Caution action figure or even Anna Karina. I'd be happy with those. Carol says, I see Betty Boop as the next character to get a horror makeover. Now it's in public domain. I want to see that. I like those ideas. I like those public domain horror reimaginings. They're a vulgar pleasure, but I like them. And you can't argue with me that they're not spoiling anyone's childhood. They're just being repurposed for another purpose. And I kind of like them. I like the fact that they started out with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And the guys who are making all of these horror public domain things are getting better and better each movie at making horror films. It's like you're watching somebody's career kickstart. And I find that a bit fascinating. Dick says, do you ever see the Prisoner comic book series that DC did? Yeah, I did. Where you've got number 6 as an older person. I've actually got that somewhere here in the man cave. And it was very well done, Dick. Yeah, you're right. Bongbot says, Carol, such a bad joke about these stupid cash grabs with the public domain characters. Shameful, I won't support any of it unless Terry tells me otherwise. Support them. I like them. I think if you take them away from... How to help you with that. Shut up, Alexa. I can't... Alexa, stop. You gotta don't let these AIs be the boss of you. Yeah, I like them. I think that they're a totally different thing than, say, the Disney Winnie the Pooh movies and stuff. If you can make that separation in your head, you can just go, hey, they've done something interesting here with this idea. And they're getting a couple of good character actors in them now. Simon Callow's in one of them, and he does a really nice job in a small role. They're a different thing. They're a separate thing. And if you start conflating the two, childhood stuff and the grown-up horror stuff, you're going to mess with your head. But if you can make that separation in your mind, you can enjoy them as low-budget, schlocky horror films. Deborah says, Begonia Sinners, one battle after another. I'll agree. All of those movies, well, I haven't seen Begonia, but I really love Sinners, and I really like One Battle After Another. Emmy says, hi, Terry, glad to see your cameras are distracting. Yeah, Emmy, I'm using the Osmo Pocket 3 as a webcam. I've hooked it up to the computer to use it as a webcam, and that's solved the issue. And I'll use the other webcam just when I'm doing a normal video because it stabilizes for that. Carol says, thing is, but you don't have to watch it. It's not my cup of tea and not a worry fan. But someone will enjoy it. Yeah. Nobody's forced to watch the horror public domain stuff. And that's fine that you don't. Because it kind of does okay on the channel. And also because the wonderful people at Umbrella send them to me. I was a bit reluctant. But then they sent me Blood and Honey and I watched it and went, there's something here. It feels a little bit trauma, but not exactly. It feels low budget English horror, and I want to see where they go with this series. And each subsequent movie, as they build a cinematic universe around all these characters, it's kind of going interesting places. And I'm okay with that. Bonkbot says, Betty Boop is someone I could see as a threat. Yeah, Betty Boop's interesting because Betty Boop cartoons started coming out pre-code, before the production code. And then they kind of made her less sexy and less intrigued by the opposite gender once the production code came in. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with her in this context. Carol says, sorry, horror's not my cup of tea. Don't worry, Carol. It's okay that you don't like horror. I don't like Mamma Mia movies. It's really okay. Paul says, the opening animation of the first Blood and Honey was a nice surprise. Yeah, they really did what they could with what they had. And all credit to them for that. It's an interesting subgenre of horror. Apparently there are 3 Popeye horror movies I haven't seen yet. I really should dip into them and just see what happens. Excuse me, got to blow my nose. Yeah, Carol, definitely give Roxy a hug for us. I know she likes watching my channel. But yeah, I got more movies. I got more books. Zombie Adams says, cannibal movies? I really like Nightmare City, the Italian one that I watched last year. Nightmare City is a really fascinating movie. This book I got given by my late friend Ivor Cole, with whom I used to do movie talks on ABC local radio in the Northern Territory. Carol says, Roxy's buggered off to bed as I'm writing Christmas cards. Okay, cool. 3 coins in the fountain. A chick flick from the 1950s, which I don't mind. But I didn't know there was a novel of it. And so I got that. And on the back, they've got really odd fonts in what they write there. About the Trevi Fountain and 3 women who try to find full love by tossing coins into the Trevi Fountain and surprised they find it. Boy says, Carol, that's so understandable. I hope the best for your kitty. Yeah, so do I. Hope Roxy is doing great eventually. Roger says, looking forward to Robert Eggers' take on A Christmas Carol due next year. Yeah, I like Robert Eggers' stuff. It's I really love Nosferatu. I got that on 4K. I haven't seen The Lighthouse or The Witch yet, but they're on my list. While we're on the subject of Christmas, because Carol just mentioned Christmas cards on the chat, here's the original novel upon which the Christmas movie is based. Die Hard, Roderick Thorpe's original novel, which has a protagonist who's nothing like John McClane. I've read the novel and it really is an interesting novel. A lot of the action beats are there, but the protagonist is a lot older. and that makes it even more suspenseful because he's wearing himself out trying to defeat these baddies. The Lighthouse and the Witch are the best in his of Robert Eggers stuff, says Deborah. Cool. And Carol says, thanks to everyone. I've also got Die Hard with a Vengeance. I don't have the second one, but I've got Die Hard with a Vengeance, the novel, which was based on the screenplay. So I've got those ones. And the books just fell over. Got to rearrange things here. And deal with the book spill. Roger says, Eggers the Lighthouse went to some dark places. Yeah, that's kind of ironic, isn't it? Deborah says, Die Hard is my favourite Christmas movie. Last year I saw it on the big screen for the first time because the Reading Cinemas at Millers Junction had an evening screening of Die Hard on the big screen. I thought, haven't seen it on the big screen, but I want to. And I had a great time with it. Dick says, I'll keep an eye out for the Die Hard 2 novel on my travels. Thank you, Dick. Yeah, I've got a video on the channel. If you type, when you're in the searching in the channel, there is a video about Die Hard where I talk about how I won $500 watching Die Hard for the first time. Go and find that after the live stream because it's kind of interesting. Boinkbot's favourite Christmas movie is Gremlins. Jose, how you doing, brother? Good morning, all. Join you a bit late. That's okay. Anytime is good. We've still got an hour. So you're here for half of it. Next one is not the movie version of it, but I've got a copy of Psycho. Robert Bloch's Psycho, which is a little bit different from the Hitchcock novel, or Hitchcock movie, sorry. But I've got it. You pick these things up. Used to be easier to pick these things up because you go to secondhand bookshops, which are a lot rarer now because economics suck and properties are hard to rent in stores. There are a couple of secondhand bookshops around regional Victoria. So when I go on a perambulation around the country in the warmer months, I probably want to hit a couple of secondhand bookshops. Dick says, wow, that first hour has gone quickly. It has, Dick, and that's great because it means I can go back to sleep. Next one is a modern book novelization of a modern movie, which I really recommend. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to see it. The Nice Guys with Rusty Crowe and Baby Goose. Based on the screenplay by Shane Black and Anthony Bagarozzi. This movie is such fun. It's really great. I know my friend Nadine Whitney did a commentary for the new release of this one. I've got just the standard Blu-ray release, but The Nice Guys is just such fun. And they put out a novelization of it because it is set, I think, in the 70s or 80s maybe. And so having a novelization is very on brand for a movie like this. So I've got that. And I've got one more. But I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm kind of alternating between very, very, very strong coffee and water here. I did a pour over coffee because I needed to wake up. And I made it like atomic strength. Can I get it? No, you can't really see it, but this coffee is not for the faint of heart. Though with my atrial fibrillation, I probably am the faint of heart. Captain Laser says, Nice Guys I stumbled across, and it's a nice throwback movie. I wouldn't mind a sequel. Nor would I. Shane Black just did a movie with Mark Wahlberg, based on the Stark novels. And everything about it is great except for Mark Wahlberg. Really disappointing. I think if I was a billionaire, I'd give Shane Black $120 million to make any movie you wanted. Fantastic guy. All of his movies are set around Christmas, which is fun. But yeah, Shane Black I want to see more from. Roger says, I think the only books I've read have been made into films are Sherlock Holmes. Does that count? Yeah, of course it does. Carol says, I always love getting the novels and films, but producing them died out, sadly. Really miss secondhand bookshops. Still a few charity ones here. Yeah, that's pretty much where things are. But you go to a charity shop now and they're all trade paperbacks, like the big size paperbacks. Don't like them. Here's the last one I've got for you. Captain Laser says, Mark Wahlberg ruins movies for me. He can't act at all. I think he can act within a certain narrow range, to be fair to him. But I'm not particularly fond of that narrow range. Innocent Bystanders by James Munro, who, as James Mitchell, also wrote Callan. I've talked about this movie, and I've got it on Blu-ray. Bloody love this movie. Fantastic with the wonderful Stanley Baker. It's got Geraldine Chaplin. It's got Warren Mitchell. Good spy movie from the 1970s, which doesn't get anywhere near enough love. Boink Bots. Dara says, my favourite Shane Black movie is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Gay Perry is great, and Robert Downey Jr. in his last really interesting role before Iron Man really hits in that as well. Boink Bot says, as for future films, looking forward to Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey and the next chapter of the Dune story. It could be a long wait. I heard that Christopher Nolan filmed a ridiculous amount of footage for the Odyssey movie. He's now got to cut it down. But I've seen some of the stills from it that came out this week. And yeah, I'm there for that. Yeah, Bonk Bot, we all miss Val Kilmer. Roger says, I remember I bought Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep due to Blade Runner. WTF, totally different to movie. Yeah, it is. It's a Philip K. Dick story. They always take little bits from the book and turn it into a totally different movie. There's not really been a great Dick adaptation apart from that Richard Linklater one, which was done as kind of rotoscoped animation. That one stayed true to it. What was that one called? But yeah, Dick adaptations are difficult for Hollywood because Hollywood doesn't have the crazy amphetamine-fueled mania of Scanner Darkly, says Deborah. Thank you, Deborah. Scanner Darkly I really like. Even though it's not one of Dick's science fiction movies, essentially, it's still an incredibly nice piece of cinema. Captain Laser says, Real Genius was my favourite Val movie. I like a lot of them. I mean, I like Top Secret. I like Spartan, the movie that he did around the early 2000s with David Mamet. That one's crazily underrated. Just so many good Val roles. Deborah says, no problems, put me on Mastermind. Yeah, I probably would have thought of it, but I'm still tired as hell. So the brain is not on all cylinders right now. Boinkbot says to Captain Laser, did you see The Saint? I love The Saint. I actually picked up a DVD of The Saint. I didn't have one. But I think The Saint is an interesting Philip Noyce movie because it combines the action spy stuff with a really heartfelt romance between Val Kilmer's character and Elizabeth Shue's character. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone there that people didn't realize. Tom says, I like Total Recall. Yeah, Total Recall was great, but the remake wasn't. Peter says, if they say based on or inspired by, you won't get any anything like the novel. Yeah, and that's okay. I don't mind if a movie's good and it varies from the novel a lot, but it still does what it does well. I'm kind of cool with that. I'm not going to castigate somebody for not doing an accurate adaptation of a novel. It's bloody hard to do. But if you can take something and reinterpret it and still not be dismissive of the original work, I think that can work. Captain Lazy said, yeah, the Saint I like, much better than Mission Impossible. Enjoy your day, Terry. Time for me to start work, says Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for coming along, mate. Appreciate it. Roger says, Val Kilmer suitably heroic in Willow. Willow is a fucking awful movie. Val's great, but the movie itself is piss poor and ordinary. Yes, it used some innovative techniques, but I didn't believe 1 second of Willow. It just, yeah, let's make a Star Warsy kind of movie, but with fantasy. It just doesn't work. Yes, it's controversial, but then no, occasionally I do that. Brian says, I thought Val Kilmer was great playing Jim Morrison in The Doors. Yeah, watching The Doors on the big screen was the only time I ever got an acid flashback. There's some very trippy moments in that movie, and I think it's an honest work. And I don't understand why Val isn't better appreciated as an actor. Yeah, he was difficult to work with for various people, and I understand that and I acknowledge that. But with his A game, he was terrific. And on that note, I'm going to make a recommendation for a podcast. Pure Cinema Podcast had a retrospective for Michael Madsen, and they had Quentin Tarantino, who's a friend of the podcast, on to talk about 5 Michael Madsen movies that you should check out. And it's great. The chat between the guys and Tarantino is great. It's a recent episode. So if you go on whatever you get your podcast with and type in Pure Cinema Podcast Tarantino, he's on a bunch of episodes. And he talks about why he likes certain Michael Madsen movies. Doug says, nice surprise live, Terry. Yep. If you look at the start of the live stream, there's an explanation for that, Doug. Dick says, Willow just comes across as a paint-by-numbers fantasy film. Yeah, absolutely. John Hart says, Val was the best thing in Top Gun. Yeah, which is such a gay movie. It's like the most lesbian movie in the world is Calamity Jane, and the most gay movie in the world is Top Gun. Calamity Jane is just such fun. I actually watched it with some lesbians once, and they got it. And they understood exactly why that movie was put out. Tom Stein says, Michael Madsen is an excellent actor. Well, he was before he died, but yeah. That podcast, which my friend Brian Sauer is a part of, really recommended. Jim still has the special edition of The Doors on Laserdisc. Incredible film. Yeah, I've got the Blu-ray. But yeah, it's I like The Doors music, which helps. And one thing I find a bit annoying is when they do a biopic or they do something like that for an artist that I don't particularly like. You go, yeah, everybody's raving about this movie, about this person, but I can't stand them. It's like they're doing a Michael Jackson biopic as a musical. And there's a little stage musical of Michael Jackson here in Melbourne at the moment. And my thought is, what are they going to do next? Kevin Spacey and Jeffrey Epstein. The guy abused children. That should be the end of it. I don't understand people who will make excuses for somebody like Michael Jackson. Deborah says, I must check out their podcast. Love Michael Madsen. Yeah, absolutely. And give the guys some support because I know Brian's a wonderful guy. He does YouTube as well. But I've known Brian since my podcasting days. He's a lovely guy, very supportive of other people. And he knows his stuff. And he will find some really weird obscurities. Bonkbot says, hard to believe that they thought a Willow TV series would fly. They've imported from the Disney Channel. How bad could it be? From what I understand, it was very bad. Dick says, I prefer Kroll over Willow, despite some aspects of Kroll being a bit paid by numbers. Well, it had Bernard Bresslaw in it, so it's always got points there. Thomas says, I enjoyed the biopic about Amy Winehouse. I hear good things about that, and I don't mind Amy Winehouse's music. I actually saw her on TV in 2004 when I was in England, in London. I thought, this chick's got something. And I really was intrigued. And this is before she was famous. And then she went on to having the problem she had. But I called it before a lot of other people did. Captain Laser said the Doors movie wasn't accurate according to band members, but I enjoyed it. I think it captured an era in a very interesting way. Doug says Val Kilmer was great in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think the chemistry between Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr. just made it work. It was lightning in a bottle good. Deborah says, I watched one episode of the Willow series. It was so bad. That's the consensus that I heard as well. It's that milking the cash cow till it turns into beef jerky and selling the jerky. I'm really, people say to me, could there be a sequel to this movie? And I get that a bit in comments in particular. I go, no, tell me a new story. Show me a world I haven't seen. Give me something new. Something like Sinners is such a breath of fresh air because it's not a pre-existing IP. It's coming from a cultural viewpoint of a man of color. It's embracing the heritage and history of Black America. And it's a bloody good monster movie. I just love the way all the characters are exactly of the time in which the movie is set. They're not kind of softened or changed for a modern audience. You've got to go on board with the history. And that bravura thing in the juke joint, where it becomes magic realism, just blew me away. I've got it on 4K now. And it's interesting. Ryan Coogler is making the next Black Panther movie as his next movie. And I'm on board with that. I want to see that. Captain Laser said, did I see the Bob Dylan biopic? It wasn't horrible, but I fell asleep. Caught the end the next day. Nah, I'll probably see it on streaming, but I'm not that involved and that intrigued by Bob Dylan. His music I like, but Bob Dylan himself doesn't come across as vivid for me. Dalek Lives Matter says the Irish Vamps were great in Sinners. Yeah, they were. And that informed, again, another immigrant group who came across almost involuntarily are the baddies in this one. Deborah says, I rewatched Sinners last week. It stands up well to rewatching. Thanks for that. I haven't seen it. Bonkbot says, Sinners blew me away. It needed another watch for me. Enthralling and good to see that kind of filmmaking. Ryan Coogler also did this great deal where 30 years from now, when he's only in his 50s, he gets all the rights to Sinners. He owns 100% of the rights in 30 years' time. And I think that's a very smart thing. I think it's a movie that really has a lot of meat on the bone. Jim says, have to go now, Terry. Thank you very much for this piece. Thanks, Jim. Take care, mate, and I'll catch up with you another time. But yeah, Sinners, and it came at an interesting cultural moment too, where the baddies were starting to win in America. And this one just stood up and shouted them down in a lot of ways. Roger says, worst thing about biopics is when they're wrong. Most people will believe the movie's view, and over time, That seems to become the truth. Yeah, absolutely. Peter says, biopics are difficult to do well. They often end up cringe and wildly inaccurate. Yeah, that reminds me of the Ernie Kovacs line about television is called a medium because it's neither rare nor well done. And biopics are neither rare nor well done. And they're very often medium. Okay, I've run out of movies. So open things up now. Ask questions. And don't forget the fart gun is waiting for you. Got to work out where I'm going to hang my badge, my little medal. Dalek Lives Matter says, watch Frankenstein recently. It's a masterpiece. Only small niggle. The creature could have been slightly less pretty. How do you make Jacob Elordi less pretty? I think the fact that he was scarred but kind of grandly beautiful is part of the point. I watched it and I loved it. I really enjoyed that. I think the second act, where we see things from the monster's viewpoint, is more interesting than the first one, because the poor little rich kid part of Oscar Isaac's Baron Frankenstein is less interesting than the arc of his creation. And that the fact that they turn it around to be basically about toxic parenting is a genius move by Guillermo. Captain Lazy said, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, Thrasher's biopics. Yeah, I've seen it. I really like John C. Reilly. And the Walk Hard is just such fun. And yeah, it takes the piss out of aspects of biopics that really need the piss taken out of them. And if you haven't seen Magnolia, John C. Reilly in Magnolia is fantastic. Incredible in that big ensemble. And people remember Tom Cruise using the C word and all of that aspect of it, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. But John C. Reilly in Magnolia is really, really good. Fantastic stuff. I mean, I love Step Brothers, of course, with him and Will Ferrell. Don't like the Sherlock Holmes one. But Step Brothers works as well. But Walk Hard really lands. And Walk Hard's that movie that people in the music industry love, because it is just such a piss take of everything people in the music industry hate about the music industry. Dalek Loves Matter says, the creature could have been slightly more true to the book, but I guess he wanted to do something different. I think underneath the surface, there is a lot of the book in Jacob Elordi's creature. Yes, he doesn't start out as being as kind of off and beautiful as in the book, like the sallow skin and the dark lank hair and the dark lips and all that kind of thing. He doesn't have a look. But I think psychologically, the monster is true to the original book. Deborah says, John C. Reilly is great. Has anyone seen The Sister Brothers? It was his passion project with Joaquin Phoenix. I haven't seen it, but I'm really interested to. Carol says, can't stand Will Ferrell. Everything raves about Elf at Christmas here. Thought it was awful. I think Elf's mid. It's not great. I think there are a lot of better Christmas movies, but it's inoffensive. I believe they're also being re-released in some cinemas in the States. Do I have anything? I've got a little folder here of links to stuff I want to put into live streams. Nah, nothing that stands out for this particular live stream. And I tend to do that when I feel how a live stream is going while we're doing it. And again, it's an unpredictable thing. Some stuff I won't talk about in that particular live stream, but I'll talk about it somewhere else. I think this one's going very chummy and interesting. So I'm not going to bring in dark aspects of filmmaking into this live stream. Dennis says, at the 4/5 stage of Predator catalog, rewatching before I see Predator Badlands on Tuesday. So what are you rewatching? Prey? Boybot says, Deborah, I've seen the Sister Brothers, and Riley does it again. What a talented fellow he is. I love his Dr. Stephen Brule character, and check it out. I've got that on DVD. Steve Brule is really a weird creation, a kind of gonzo nut job. Anybody can have a TV show creation. But if you can see Steve Brule and check it out, he is truly a grotesque. And I just love him. And John C. Reilly has talked about him in interviews, about how Steve Brule came around. Roger says, just think of the first AI biopic would be Dean Martin really was teetotal. Bogart never smoked, and things more extreme than that. There's such a backlash against AI being used to create a lot of things in films. My theory is there's going to be a lot of AI by stealth when they're not going to say it's AI. And they're going to try to slip it under the door. Don't think it'll work because there are increasing numbers of articles and videos on how to spot AI, even though it is becoming incredibly more sophisticated. There are still tells, and we'll be able to spot them when they're happening. I mean, yeah, but somebody at some stage, inevitably in the next 20 years, is going to do a version of Casablanca where Rick gets the girl. It's not going to be official, unless it is. But they're going to be all those kind of things as well. Or even where Rick runs away with Louis and they're lovers and they have a kiss. That's a possibility too. Nothing you can imagine in cinema is impossible anymore. And somebody somewhere will do it. Carol says, I prefer either the Grinch films. UK has gone Grinchmas nuts this Christmas with themed stuff everywhere. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Why don't people have snowmen made up like John McClane? That would be fun. But says, I love the original animated Grinch film from the 60s with Boris Karloff, the best version. Yeah, my favorite Christmas films. Trying to think, apart from Die Hard, which is kind of the obvious one. Let's see. I kind of like Chris Kiss Bang Bang is a Christmas film. A lot of Shane Black is. Iron Man 3 is a Christmas film. I kind of like that idea of Shane Black positioning action films as Christmas films, which is kind of combating all of that cutesy saccharine chipmunks roasting on an open fire kind of Christmas stuff by putting an action film dead in the center of it. I kind of like that subversion. Friday says, back again, a lot of peeps checking in with me after the attempted break-in. Still too amused by the irony that they fixed one of the locks for me by attempting to break them. Yeah, take care, Friday. That's deeply scary. Fuck those guys. Dick says, Silent Partner is a super little underrated thrill on a Christmas movie too. Yeah, I've got Silent Partner on DVD. And I remember seeing it, I think I first saw it on VHS and thought, why doesn't this movie have more prominence? Yeah, boing, boing. Typing's hard. Sometimes I think people in chat and people in comments are typing with their elbows. I know you're not, but I get some very badly worded comments, and not in chat, but usually in comments. And I'm trying to figure out what the person is actually saying. I did notice one thing. I was watching some trailers because I had nothing else to do. And they're doing a sequel to that Gerard Butler movie, Greenland, where the Earth gets hit by a comet and everybody, and Gerard Butler's got to get his family to some big shelter vaults on Greenland. They made a sequel to it where they've got radiation storms, like radiation storms are a thing. And it looks like the special effects look okay. But it's like, nobody asked for a sequel to that movie. It stood alone pretty interestingly. But from what the trailer gives us, the idea for the sequel is bloody stupid. Roger says, Christmas merch, the tower in Die Hard as a snow globe. I'd buy that for $1. Yeah. Nakatomi Plaza. I got a Nakatomi Plaza t-shirt for that reason. Carol says, love all the versions of Christmas Carol. Muppets is the best, but the Disney animation with Jim Carrey is really scary. Dick says, my messages can read bad just because I'm a crap speller. That's what I was going to ask you, Dick. What software do you use for the animations on your channel? Because I might want to look into that. Dalek Lives Matter says, started watching one battle after another last night. Not finished it yet. What do you make of it? Stick with it. The car chase scene in One Battle After Another is next level. It stands up there with Bullet and all those other good ones and Vanishing Point. It is an incredibly well-made movie. Deborah says, I watched Red One during the week. As Christmas movie goes, it was okay. Not a great movie, but inoffensive. Yeah. Interesting to see where Dwayne Johnson's career is going to go, because he did that boxing movie where he was basically using it as Oscar bait, and it didn't land. And he looked creepy with all the prosthetic makeup on. And he's also pissed off so many people in Hollywood by being bossy. It'll be interesting to see where his career goes. Hi, Jerry. Recently saw Dead End Drive-In. It's become my new favourite Australian movie. Yeah, I got the 4K from Umbrella. Dead End Drive-In is fun. And it's at the old Matraville Drive-In, which is not far away from where my sister and brother-in-law live, and my nephew. Yeah, it's fun. It's got that kind of punk Australian grungy working class sensibility. I really like it. I've also got the T-shirt that Umbrella sent me along with it. I know we're almost out of coffee, but we've only got half an hour to go. Boinkbot says, it's off topic, but Australia is known for its dangerous creatures. Have I had any particularly memorable encounters with wildlife? I lost that hand. No, it's overstated. I've been around venomous snakes, and you just learn to leave them the hell alone. I was a kid walking home from school across a paddock, and it was a semi-rural area. And there's a tiger snake walking alongside me in the grass. And yeah, it was scary, but I did the right thing. I stopped and I let it go, and I made sure I didn't cross its path, and it was fine. And the only other thing is, and these aren't particularly venomous, is I was house sitting up in the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney. And they had an outside light switch for the veranda. And I went out the veranda, reached for the light switch, and felt something furry. And I did it again and just quickly flipped the light switch on. There was a huntsman spider that big with its legs sitting just above the light switch. Huntsmans aren't dangerous, but they're enormous. They kill birds. That's how big they are. They are just big spiders. But for the most part, it's like anywhere else in the world. If you don't act like a dick and you learn what to do in a circumstance, it's not dangerous at all. When I was a kid swimming in the beaches in Sydney, they'd ring a bell on the beach if there was a shark spotted. And so everybody got out of the water and nobody was got by sharks. It's just a matter. I mean, you guys in Northern Hemisphere countries got bears, fucking big predator mammals, and mountain lions and shit like that. We don't have that. Yes, we got irukandji jellyfish up in the north, and we got box jellyfish and things like that. But it's no more or less safe than anywhere else in the world. You just got to be a little bit smart when you're out in the bush. Deborah says, "Darling Loves Matter. I'm with Terry. Sick of it. Sick with it. It's a fabulous movie. Stick with it." Yeah. Dick says, "I just cut and paste pictures using the effects tool in YouTube Studio. On my phone is all I do." Okay, thanks for that, Dick. I'll check that out. Carol says, "The Santa Claus films were funny and clever in a way, but no, I can't stand Tim Allen. I've just got a glitch about that guy." Dalek Lives Matter says, "The remake of Deathstalker is good. Actually felt like an 80s movie. I will check that out at some stage." Carol says, "Big spiders here scare me and they're tiny compared to Australian spiders." It doesn't worry me. I mean, yeah, big spider. Then it's not like they're going to go and pick a fight with you in a bar. You leave them alone. I mean, spiders have survived for tens of hundreds of millions of years. They're smart enough not to go up against a big thing unless they absolutely have to. So if you respect all of them, all animals and birds and reptiles and insects and things like that, you're never going to have a hassle. It's just a matter of people being, I'm going to hit it. And then you hit it and it crawls up your arm and bites you. If you're not a dickhead, everything's fine. Dalek Lives Matter talking about one battle at a time. I'm only 40 minutes in, but Sean Penn has stolen the show. Wait till you see Sean Penn at the end of the movie. That's all I got to say. Tom says, "I had a close encounter with a mountain lion in Vermont in 1964. Yeah, I mean, there are monstrous animals wherever you go. And some of them are human. You just got to do the right thing." Boypot wanted a gripping yarn about a great white or a dingo. No, dingoes, they're up in Ngari, Fraser Island off the coast near Brisbane. And that's their turf, and they don't like human beings being there. Dalek Lives Matter says, "I keep tarantulas. They're great, but not pets." Yeah, they're interesting animals, or interesting insects. Great whites. There used to be a aquarium near Manly Pier, on Manly Pier, in fact, in Sydney. And they had various sharks swimming around a tank that was only like a metre deep. And the thing you could do for charity is toss coins and make them land on the sharks. And people did that a lot. You just chuck a coin in there and hopefully it'll land on a shark. That's the only shark encounters I had as a kid. Boing Bot says, "Dingo is probably compatible with coyotes." Yeah, probably. They are a different species than dogs, definitely. And they are very intelligent, but they are territorial, and particularly on what is known as Fraser Island, but it's actually called Ngari. They have attacked children and things like that because they're small animals. These are ambush predators. Don't leave your kid around where there are dingoes. Peter says, "Yeah, we share the planet we don't know." Absolutely. I mean, it's like even at a lower level, respecting the fact that our cats are cats makes them and us much happier. Let them have their space. Let them have their thing, and don't try to make them into toys or pets or babies. That's the way we've always had our cats. Jerry says, also, BMX Bandits is currently on Netflix. Movie was very popular in the US in the late 80s and 90s. Yeah, I've seen it a few times. I've actually got a new copy of it. I got a Nicole Kidman collection on DVD. So I should rewatch BMX Bandits. Roger says, "I can't remember who said it, but I think it was Spike Milligan that said you couldn't live in a country where you have to vacuum the garden every summer." Yeah, absolutely. It's just treat everything with respect. Learn how the minds of things around you work and work out what you can do to avoid triggering animals and birds. And you're going to be fine. Deborah says, I lived in the bush for years. The danger angle was very overrated. The only truly nasty experience I had was house invasion by a pair of tiger snakes. Yeah, tiger snakes, you just got to, there are ways of handling them. We get occasional snakes in our area and venomous ones too. Like if I go for a walk down along Werribee River in summertime, there's a not insignificant chance I'll encounter a venomous snake. But you just back off and let it go past. It will. And then you just walk past. And that's it. No biggie. Friday says, have we discussed the Highlander remake? I think Highlander is just such a kind of marginal film in a sense. I don't mind there's his remake. I like Cavill as an actor. I think he's good in what he does at the level he does it. I haven't got a problem with the Highlander remake. It's not holy text. It's just a movie. And it wasn't an incredibly great movie at the time. Yeah, it was an action film. It was an 80s action film, of course. Sequel's worse. But I haven't got any skin in the game when it comes to a Highlander remake. I'll probably watch it and just see where it goes. Tom says, did we get the Siskel and Ebert TV show back in the day? No, we had our own people. We had David Stratton and Margaret Pomerantz, who are much more interesting people than either Siskel or Ebert when it comes to projecting on a screen. David died this year, and I've got his books here. And Margaret Pomerantz is still doing stuff on TV. They were incredibly intelligent people, but they liked cult movies as much as anyone. Dalek Lives Matter says, apparently the new Running Man is bombing. I mean, yeah, which is a shame because I had high hopes for it. I really liked Last Night in Soho, and I was hoping that this one would be at least as good as that, but apparently it's not. Deborah says, I've seen a walk past a venomous snake than a bear any day. Yeah, depends on the bear. If you're in Oxford Street in Sydney, walk past all the bears you like. But yeah, in American countryside, no. Carol says, I've been bitten twice by spiders, once in Madeira on the leg and then on the face in the UK. I reacted badly with swelling and pain, but not wanting them anywhere near me now. Yeah, I can see that. We used to have outdoor toilets, and redback, which are very venomous, like to sit under toilet seats because it was a moist, warm environment. And you learn to just lift the toilet seat, slam it down, any redbacks will run away, and then you use the toilet. Carol says, snakes also terrify me. I've held a golden boa of some kind. Amazed how cold it felt. I didn't find it cold when I was holding snakes. They were kind of warm, and I like the texture of the scales. It's one of those things, again, it's a respect thing. You try to respect animals and reptiles and insects and birds. I mean, we've got birds that are 2 meters tall, and you can feed them, but you got to kind of tuck your thumb in when you feed them because they'll bite your thumb. Friday James says, UK is only one venomous snake. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I've seen one adder in the wild in 56 years. It was on a biological field trip. We were looking hard. Ricky says, Highlander, there can only be one. Pity there doesn't mean movies. Yeah. I've got no problem with a Highlander reboot. I'll see where it goes, see what it does. Deborah says, nearly trodden an adder in Cornwall. So glad I was looking where I was walking. Yeah. Don't have any animal encounters. The only animal encounter I ever had overseas, we drove past a roadkill skunk in Minnesota. Those fuckers smell horrible. Skunks are the mankiest looking, smelling creatures in the world. We tried to wind the windows of the car up, but we didn't quite make it. And that musky fucking urine shit smell came through. Horrible. Why do you let animals like that? Okay, I'll get rid of that. But yeah, I mean, I've had snake encounters that really, I'm still here. Never got bitten. It really is one of those things where you got to watch what's happening. Bonkbud says, I must be going. Thank you, Terry and all, for a most enjoyable time. Hope to see you soon. You will. There are going to be videos. I'll continue to do this stuff until I can't do it anymore. But thanks for being part of the Bonkbud. Yeah, I mean, people have such a phobia about Australian wildlife. And there's absolutely no need to. I mean, yeah, occasionally your car might get hit by a kangaroo if you drive early in the morning or late at night. But you just got to be careful. You do that, ain't no good thing, ain't no bad thing. Captain Lee says, I hit a skunk with my Buick. It's the worst smell ever. Yeah, it is. It's a deeply rank smell. We're coming home from the Mall of America outside Minnesota, outside Minneapolis. And yeah, skunk roadkill. It was fresh too. Not a nice smell. Almost as bad as any kind of pronouncement you get from Donald Trump. Franny James says the Highlander sequels are pretty hilariously bad. The Highlander 2 makes more sense if you imagine it's a Masters of the Universe movie. I don't want to have to. I'm not going to watch Highlander 2 ever again. It was bad. It was a cash in. It was dumb. It was probably a contractually obligated thing by Christopher Lambert. No, not my thing at all. Though he is very funny in Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers movie. That's another underrated movie about making movies. Hail Caesar. Would that it were so simple. Love that film. So what's anybody doing for the rest of the day or tomorrow? Because what do we got? Sal's getting a tattoo this week on her leg. So there's going to be a lot of smelling of bepanthen and things like that. But apart from that, not a lot going on. Deborah says, Hail Caesar's another favourite. Absolutely. Captain Laser says, moose in the wild are amazing to see, but they will also kill you. Respect nature. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those things where if you're not a macho dickhead, nature's not going to really go you if you don't go at it. And also staying calm helps. If you can stay calm, you're not going to be putting out all of those pheromones and sweat stuff that the animals can sense. And so they're not going to get agitated because you're agitated. It's just a matter of being part of the planet. And a lot of people think that they're exceptional because they've got cars and credit cards and stuff like that. But you just got to be there. I mean, it's like cats. I've seen people who turn their cats into babies. Peter, speaking of smells, thank you, Peter. And the fart gun get there. Got to put it in front of this camera. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it, mate. Yeah, Sally's getting some ink done. This one is, she's getting the same tattoo as our niece Steph, who is currently dying, has. And it's going to be like a memento mori tattoo. She's getting it on her leg. And she's either getting it done today or she's getting it done on Thursday, depending on the scheduling. But it's an important tattoo for her. She's got a dozen other ones. But this one has a lot of meaning to it. Finally says, my friend had a pet skunk, still have the scent glands because removing them is illegal in the UK. Spent a lot of time fussing and getting the skunk used to people. Surely there are better pets than skunks. Carol says, except seagulls and pigeons, Richard nearly headbutted by a pigeon earlier. Did you call out a pigeon, Richard? Did you go, can you kill my brother? Yeah. The only encounter I had with a seagull that was a little problematic was it ate my armoured croissant out of my hand when I was at Williamstown Beach last year. Tom says, had a close encounter with a bull moose in Connecticut back in 95. Must have weighed 600 pounds. Yeah, you try to avoid that. Deborah says, today I got a bunch of tomato seedlings to pot up that I'm growing for a friend, a freezer to clean out, and movie reviews to finish. It ain't a bad day then, is it? Are they heritage tomatoes or are they just standard tomatoes? Because heritage tomatoes when I go to farmers markets, I try to get heritage tomatoes even though they're more expensive because they taste like tomatoes. Carol says, low-flying pigeon. Friday says, I like Christopher Lambert in Night Moves. I saw that a long time ago, but I don't remember anything about it. But he was one of those actors that I don't think he was trying hard. It didn't feel like he was really making his A game and putting his all into it the way so many actors do. And even character actors do that a lot. I saw a couple of YouTube videos about the process various successful actors go through. And there are a couple of them that have said, I go over my lines each night before the next day's shooting, and I recite them about 20 or 30 times until I've got them right, and then I can work on the cadences and work on the physicality of them. But the way some actors memorize their lines is by repetition, just going over the script again and again. And you've got to admire that dedication. I think it's really interesting that they do that. Deborah says, Heritage Roamers, Sam Marazzo, and Moneymaker. Cool. Dick says, with a surname Bird, you would think that the pigeons would be on my side. Maybe there are turf wars, kind of like the Jets and the Sharks. Maybe there are bird turf wars that you're not aware of, Dick. And maybe you stepped into the wrong turf for the wrong kind of bird. Roxy's down to watch. Hi, Roxy. Hope she's feeling better soon. Roger says, not deadly, but could cause a nasty accident. You have a lot of large deer roaming the roads late at night. Up in the mountains outside Melbourne, there are a lot of deers. They were introduced for venison, I suppose. But there are a lot of feral deers around. We're kind of looking at ways of handling that. I would be willing to eat more than my share of the venison because I love venison. And first time I had venison was actually in Hobart, Deborah. I was at Hadley's Hotel and they had a venison roast. Magnificent. Loved it. I think Bambis are one of the more delicious mammals. For those of you who don't know, down in Tasmania, they've got great cuisine. They've got scallop pies that are fantastic. They've got great venison. The seafood down, particularly along the Hobart waterfront, at Mules and places like that. Fantastic food down there. And also, you've got Mona, the art gallery and museum, where they've got a wall of vaginas. They've actually got plaster cast vaginas in a big row on the wall. That woman's spectacular. Captain Lazy says, deer jerky is quite good. Okay. Deborah says, hi, Roxy. There's a plague of feral deer in Tasmania. My father-in-law usually brings us some when he goes hunting. Love venison. Carol says, venison burgers are lovely. Do you hear deer accents here mainly in the home counties? Okay. Also, I think because venison's so lean, you got to mix some bacon or something like that in with the burgers to make them a bit juicier. Deborah says, Tasmania is great. Yeah. I like going to Tasmania, but I won't go there in the cold months. We went there last in November, and that was just about right. And we did the whole circuit around Tasmania. I even picked up a bit of hue and pine when I was in Strawn from the from the wood mill there. And Huon pine's very hard to get now because you're not allowed to cut it down. But I've still got it, and it's still fragrant after all these years. Deborah says, I'm a wuss. No, I'm not. To be honest with you, I'm gonna get deep here. I was once homeless in the middle of winter in Melbourne, and I've got PTSD about being too cold. And occasionally it does trigger me. So I don't like being cold for that reason. Friday says, we have birth turf wars on the high street where I live. It's crows versus seagulls. Yes, seagulls are no longer coastal birds in the UK. I'm on Team Crow, obviously. The crows are really like in Osaka, they have a lot of crows in the urban areas, particularly as the non-posh urban areas like Shinsaibashi East. And the crows sit on the roof of buildings in the morning when you're walking past and yell at you. It's like they're dissing you as you walk along these narrow, beautiful Japanese streets. And the crows will sit up on top of buildings and just talk shit at you. And I kind of admire that. We don't have many crows in Australia. We have mostly ravens. And we have them locally in there. We get on fine with them. The ones people have trouble with in Australia are Australian magpies. Because during the mating season, the Australian magpies will swoop at people. And people who wear bicycle helmets and are cycling put zip ties spiking out of their bicycle helmets to stop magpies from swooping them. But the thing is, we've got magpies around our place, but magpies can recognize 30 human faces. And if they know you're local and they know you're not dangerous, they will leave you alone. Deborah says, I take it back, apologies. I have DV-related PTSD, so it's something I can relate to. Take care, Deborah. I mean, PTSD is something that's underrated as something that affects people's lives. And mine's complex because it's from my whole childhood, mostly. But then there are also things like the homelessness that trigger me. It's I like being warm, and I'm unashamed in that. I don't mind being hot, but I can't stand being cold. Carol says, crows versus seagulls is Dover too, like watching a soap at times. If the birds dance like the sharks and the jets, it would be cool, yeah. What you need to find is a Russ Tamblyn crow and a George Chakiris seagull and have them go each other. Frank says, what movies do people think are good and should be more well known? I'll put up Desire and Hell at Sunset Motel with Sherilyn Fenn. I kind of like The Core, that disaster film from about 2004. I love it unreasonably. And yes, it's not scientifically accurate, but it's kind of bold in its non-scientific accuracy. I like that one. I think Goodbye Paradise, the Australian film, is underrated. 1983, starring Ray Barrett. Just got a release in a box set from Umbrella Entertainment. What else? I kind of like The Bad and the Beautiful and 2 Weeks in Another Town, the ones that Kirk Douglas did with Vincente Minnelli 10 years apart. They're favourites, and I think they're underrated. Friday says, at Carol, I've watched crows knocking down seagulls from the sky by spiraling them down. Yeah, that's kind of a Jets and Sharks thing, isn't it? But yeah, so many movies that need more love and just don't get it. Deborah says, I think the power you talked about on Saturday is sorely underrated. And it is. It really takes apart, like reality is coming apart because of Adam Hart in that movie. And nobody's a reliable narrator. It's got an incredible paranoia to it. Roger says, hope you are not homeless for too long. Everybody should have a roof over their heads. Yeah, that's why I help homeless charities. Absolutely. It's it has a long-term effect on you. I mean, we've had a mortgage and we finally own this house for 21 years. I'm still keenly aware of the precariousness of having a home. And that does stay with you. Fortunately, I had friends up in the Blue Mountains outside Sydney who offered me a place to stay, as long as I helped them catalogue their library and help them around their house. And I did that. and it allowed me to get back on my feet in some ways. It does have a profound effect on you. Dick says, Grim Prairie Tales, a portmanteau western with Brad Dourif and James Earl Jones as two travellers telling ghost stories. Yeah, I can see that. Haven't seen it, but I'm aware of the film. So happy with the new camera. Using the Osmo Pocket as a webcam has solved all of my problems. Well, not all of them, but all the ones I've had for the last 2 hours. Going to keep doing this. Has it heated up at all? No, it hasn't particularly heated up. In warm weather, Osmo Pockets can heat up a little bit if you're not careful. But this one seems to be going okay. But yeah, there are, I mean, that's part of what this channel is pointing people to the movies that need a lot more love. Not always the case, but sometimes I just love it when people watch a movie that I've recommended and they love it. I mean, that's a buzz. That is a definite buzz. Dick says the picture quality is so much better with the Osmo. Good. I think also what happened with the last one where the live stream went tits up. I went outside afterwards and there are guys working on the pit for the broadband outside the house at 8 o'clock in the morning. They disconnected my internet without telling me and worked on it there, which screwed things up. That's why that last one was just such a bloody nightmare, apart from the camera wandering. Captain Lacy said, glad you got a new camera. It's not particularly a new camera. It's a replacement for one I broke. But the Osmo Pocket's like the perfect vlogging camera. And you'll see that when I do the Westgate Tunnel video. It turned out really well for the Westgate Tunnel video I did yesterday. And it's light, you can carry it around. It's small. It's got these dedicated mics that hook up to it. And don't use Bluetooth. They use a proprietary synchronization software. And these magnetic clasp mics are just really great for what the Osmo Pocket does. I don't think I ever need to upgrade my vlogging camera because it just is such a useful little kit. And it's designed specifically for YouTube and vlogging. Can't recommend it highly enough. Have I seen The House with the Yellow Carpet, says Zami Adams. No, I haven't. Is it recommended? Franny and Deborah are talking about pigeons. I haven't eaten one. I've seen it on a menu, but I've never actually eaten pigeon because I don't know what they eat. Pigeons are random beasts. Got a lot of them around Melbourne. Not our area particularly because I think the Hawks get them. And the Eagles. It's really great because if I go around the rural areas not far away, in the summertime particularly, you can see hawks hovering over paddocks, just waiting for a mouse to appear, or even a rabbit. And rabbits are a pest here. They got introduced and they're a monstrous pest. And in fact, there's a place called Phillip Island, not too far away from here, like an hour and a half's drive from Melbourne, where they've got a rabbit plague at the moment, and rabbits are all over the place. So they've got two problems in Phillip Island. First one is a rabbit plague. Second one is on the north side of the island. They've got a whole bunch of houses built on low-lying land. And as the sea levels rise, these houses get flooded regularly. So they're not having a good time. They didn't like Phillip Island. Never liked Phillip Island. It's a shitty touristed up place. Does have a penguin colony there. But at the moment, rabbit plagues are threatening even the penguins. Rats with wings, says Tom Stein about pigeons. Carol says, next door to us has homing pigeons. They're kind of funny to watch. Yeah, but you can't leave your washing out on the line, can you? Dalek Loves Matter says, flying rats with fleas. Yeah, they are a little bit. And by the way, look at the time. We really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed, and we must end our show. So thank you to everybody who's been a part of the live stream. It was last minute. I said the reasons why at the start of the video. Tom says, thanks, Terry. See you next time. Take care. Deborah says, I'm in the suburbs 5 minutes from Hobart CBD and I have peregrine falcons and goshawks. No problems with washing. Pigeons aren't messy, says Carol. That went quickly. Have a good rest of your day. I will. I'm going to have a sleep now. And then I'm going to get up and do the rest of the day stuff. So thanks to everybody. You've been great. Keeping me awake and just indulging me because I wasn't able to get a video out for all the reasons. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks for being part of it. Take care and all the best to Sally. Absolutely. I will pass it on. Enjoy your week too, Carol. And give Roxy another hug for me, okay? And I will catch all of you guys later.